Paraphrasing Gennaro Gattuso here, but sometimes good, sometimes maybe not so good. That's the life of a Lazio fan. Lazio this season up and down, good in Champions League, not so good in Serie A, and we'll talk plenty about it here on the Calcio Guys. Gianni, Adriano, I'm Nicholas, and joining us this week, our good friend Shawn McIntosh from Lazio World. Shawn, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going, about as well as it can for a Laziale these days. But it's always a pleasure to join you guys and chat calcio. It's been a while, so great to be joining you guys. Thanks for having me.
No, we're really happy to have you. We always enjoy you being on with us and having some fantastic conversations. Thank you for coming on.
Anytime.
I'll never forget, Shawn. I think it was the first time we had you on, and you come on and you said your wife was pregnant with your son at the time, and you said, if we could get a signed a Cherby shirt, we're going to name our son Leone, and that's exactly what happened.
And that is true enough. I know.
My favorite story of like all 200 plus episodes that we've been doing this, one of my favorite stories.
No, thank you guys. Hard to believe it actually happened, and yeah, pretty cool. Let's see what other shirts we can get.
Any kids on the way?
Which player do you want? We'll have to send a message.
I never got
on
one. I threw it out there in the atmosphere, but it didn't work out. Still ended up naming my daughter, but my daughter's name is Alessia. So I was going with the center back route, for Laziale and
I see.
But I'm still open to taking a kit. If it's out there, it's in the stars.
So Alessio, if you're Romagnoli, if you're listening, please give our friend a kit.
That's awesome. Before we get into the actual Calcio talk, Shawn, you did have a nice little trip to Italy. You got to experience some Champions League Calcio with Napoli. Tell us all about that and tell us what it's like to see a Champions League game, because none of us have ever seen one live in person. At least
it was awesome. Had the fortune of going for work with Charlotte Football Club. Blessed to have the opportunity to travel here and there and take in some of the best atmospheres around the world. We're a pretty ambitious club in Charlotte, and we want to make sure that we're producing a match day experience that rivals anybody's across the world, not just in Major League Soccer. And so Napoli, is got. I don't even say it's arguable, and anybody that wants to argue it's wrong, but I think they've got the best announcer in world football in Decibel, and something that we wanted to see in person, taking a Champions League match and see what it looks like and how they put that on for one of the biggest matches in the biggest tournament in the world. And so myself and a couple guys on our entertainment team went out. It was a quick trip, but I'll say this, and this is coming from a Laziale, the people of Naples, the people at that club at Napoli, absolutely world-class human beings. The hospitality that they showed us was tremendous. And, we were fortunate to full look at their facilities and checking out their locker room, pitch access, you name it, moments before a Champions League fixture, and, getting to meet and hear from different members of the staff on how they operate as a club, and, some of their strategies, and, some of their global efforts, and, some of the thoughts behind some of the shirts that they put on. And it was really great and super gracious, amazing hosts, and, a Champions League fixture. It's, we talked a little bit about it before we went live, but getting to hear the Champions League anthem was incredible, spine tingling. You're so entranced with what's going on in the moment that, I even forgot about the crescendo of it all when everybody joins in singing Champions at the very end. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And it's like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then it was for Napoli, it was a good match. We wanted to hear the goal announcement, and fortunate that we got to hear Decibel do his work. The first goal was an own goal, And so we didn't get to hear it because, of course, he's announcing the goal scorer. And so I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. And then Osimhen, the king of Africa, African Player of the Year, scores a goal, and we get to hear Decibel with his announcement. So it was awesome to hear in person, and it was just a really strong atmosphere. You think about that match against Braga, no disrespect to Braga, but it's not Real Madrid. It's not a massive
Bayern Munich
global name, and this is a midweek match for Napoli that was all but through. They had a little bit of work to do, but there wasn't a ton to be concerned. I mean, they would have had to have lost that one by a couple goals. So every reason for the people of Naples to maybe not attend this midweek match with, obviously the play this year in the league hasn't been up to what they expected or what it was last year. So I'll say they showed up. They were incredibly loud. It was a pretty packed building. It looked great. The atmosphere was tremendous. There was definitely a buzz and excitement for it. So obviously they did what they had to do to advance out of Champions League. And so that was an important step for them. In just talking to some of the folks at the club, that was their sentiment, that this was an important match for them, not necessarily because it meant getting out of the group, which they kind of expected, but to just get them back on track to winning ways, so that hopefully that would roll over into Serie A. And we saw it this weekend. Obviously, Napoli took care of business in league play. So, yeah, it was tremendous.
Yeah, I have to agree because with the whole friendliness, even when I went last season, funny enough, I did not hear any Bellini announcements because they lost to Lazio 1-0 to the one game that I went to. So you saw a different side that I didn't even get a chance to see. But overall, even the fans, they were very welcoming with me. It's funny because you have fans sneak in snacks and stuff, and they're just distributing in the middle of gameplay or halftime, and just passing it around like cookies or the cornetti that have the cream inside, all this stuff like that. It's such a fun atmosphere and stuff, a lot of energy. And you feel it, the arena, the stadium was vibrating when I went. But the
entire city, right? It's all about Napoli there, and they immortalize their stars like no other city. I mean, we can joke about it. Obviously, the Maradona is still everywhere. 30 years later, after that Scudetto, it's just such a part of their city, and now you see the paintings, the murals of Kvaratskhelia, Osimhen, and Di Lorenzo all around the city. And on a side note to that, what was pretty cool for somebody that works in Major League Soccer right now is, of course, you've got your Maradona kits everywhere, and you've got your fake kits from Napoli on every side street possible, and you now see Lionel Messi Inter Miami shirts everywhere. And I was both thrilled to see Major League Soccer, now has a presence in alleys of Napoli, but also super annoyed that, of course, it's you can't get away from Messi in that bright pink, no matter where you go around the world. But it's certainly great for the league.
But you saw something that I'm extremely jealous of. You happened to see the dressing room for the Napoli players. Tell us about that. How was it just being in a room
Newly
like
renovated
that?
too, no? Newly renovated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's the room that basically they celebrated the Scudetto last year, and many players that came in and out of that, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, history. Yeah, for me, for somebody as passionate, just like you guys, about calcio, it's no different than going to Pompeii or seeing the Colosseum in Rome. That's my history. That's the history that I love seeing, right? Not only the locker room, but getting to walk the steps where Maradona famously walked up prior to being introduced to the 100,000 Napoli fans, during his introduction to the team. Getting to see those steps, walk up them, and take a photo on those was, for me, something really, really special, because that's footballing history. So yeah, there's obviously it's a club, it's a building that's been around since the 40s. So, it's an old building. I think what's interesting too, you see everything in the United States, not just the US, but you guys in North America in general, and in the sports landscape, everything is about the best new technology and every bell and whistle, and it's got to be entertainment, right? Like flashing in front of your face at all times. And this is an old building, and we know about the buildings in Italy, and they're old, and they certainly need to be renovated. And we'd love to see new buildings. We'd love to see better, nicer, cleaner. But I don't know. There was just something special about walking into that building and still knowing that, I'm walking down the same steps, and that Maradona was walking down, and that there's a lot of history in here. That World Cups were played in this building. And I thought that was pretty cool. And you didn't need all the bells and whistles. You went to your seat, you sat down, and you were there to watch. Again, it's a Champions League fixture. You're there to watch some of the best football in the world. So, yeah, I thought it was awesome.
I don't know if you guys, Adrian, I don't know if you have any other questions. We do actually have one question relating to Napoli and Lazio. So it might be a bit of a premature question, but it might be a perfect transition, Sean. Unless, Adrian, you had another question about this specifically?
Not really. I mean, it was just, you nailed like some big points there, Sean. I mean, Despo Bellini, I think, is iconic. Obviously, everybody knows, anybody who follows Calcio, Serie A, even just general football fan knows his voice. I think he really broke out on the scene on that, on the Higuain goal announcement many years ago. And he's just, for one, just from an outsider, he looks just like a stand-up great dude. Like, just outside of all the announcing and all the, his work, he just looks like a stand-up guy. So, pretty cool to see that you met him. I got, like you said, pretty cool that you were at an atmosphere like that. Even as a neutral in that match, like you said, Sean, it was just as if it was a Lazio match, but it wasn't a Lazio match. So it's for me, that's awesome. Going to games in Italy as a neutral is pretty cool. Me and Nick got to experience that 4 years ago now, and it's a unique feeling, like just being in this iconic stadium for whatever match it may be. If it's Serie A, if it's Coppa Italia, if it's Champions, Europa, Conference, it doesn't really matter. I think just being in these atmospheres are huge. So, no, Nick, let's segue away. We had a good segue, so we'll take it from there.
We did get a question on Instagram. So I do want to talk a lot about Lazio, but just jump straight into this question because it relates Napoli and Lazio. Do you want and think Lorenzo Insigne will join Lazio? So I don't know. I don't know what the rumors are or anything. I'm not following, but I know he has a bit of issues, in Toronto, or he kind of wants out, possibly come back to Italy. I guess Lazio's rumored to be. I don't know. What do you think about this, Sean?
Without going into in contract talk for a player in our league in Major League Soccer, I'll say just purely from a fan standpoint with Lazio. There were some rumors, largely because right now Lazio has some injury concerns, particularly at the winger position. Isaacson, who was a Danish signing in the summer transfer window, finally got a couple opportunities and looked incredibly promising. Honestly, is a player that I was very excited about and gave Lazio's attack a ton of life, but then got injured, and he's been out now for a couple weeks. Doubtful that we'll see him until the new year. And Zaccagni had some injury problems that took him out of playing for the Azzurri, and he's recently returned. Pedro's up there in age, started off the season injured as well, and so this all kind of mounts up to a need for a winger, and rumors about Insigne not being super happy in Toronto, and not hard to imagine why. They struggled, and they had a really tough season in Major League Soccer, went through a couple of managerial changes, and but I just, to be honest, I don't want him at Lazio. I think his best days are far gone. We saw it in his last season at Napoli. He just lost a little bit of an edge, and it's really tough to do when you're playing at that winger position. How important your pace is and shiftiness, and he's a small player, and so you lose that pace at that size. It's really tough. Unless you are, you look at a player like Pedro. Pedro still has a lot of the quickness. And I just think when you think about those two players, like Pedro, just in terms of like, if I'm ranking those types of players, I think Pedro was always a couple steps above maybe Insigne. But I just think he's lost too much. So, he wasn't able to influence the game as much in Major League Soccer. I don't think he would do that for Lazio. I think he comes with a hefty wage. It would require him taking a significant pay cut. I don't know if maybe he wants to get back to Italy bad enough. He'd have to accept a much smaller role. Be tough to imagine him wanting to do that. Again, maybe he's homesick enough, but I just don't think that's the signing that I want to see Lazio make right now.